Hello and welcome to today's Wednesday Words with me, Victoria Reynoldson, Communication and Culture Coach. Today in Wednesday Words, you will learn about how to plan and write your presentation with these key success factors. I'm sure you've all been there. We're sitting in a presentation. It's been going already for 40 minutes. And the speaker appears to be only on slide 25 of what appears to be a very long presentation deck. We're sitting there and we're not really engaged with the topic, whether it's virtually or we're there in person. We're already thinking about lunch. We are already thinking about our to-do list, and perhaps we're secretly trying to do a few things off the to-do list in the background. It's not a great situation, and I'm sure we've all experienced it. And yet, when it comes to writing and planning our own presentations, it can be a little bit challenging. And that's because we often equate writing a presentation and planning it with opening up PowerPoint or Google Slides and just creating a new deck to start and get going. So the first point is stop, pause, and step away from the PowerPoint and Google Slides deck now. This is not the best way to start planning and writing your presentations. In fact, there are many steps that we have for thinking about how we're going to really make the most impactful presentation that we can that's really going to connect with people. So learn today in Wednesday Words these key success factors for planning and writing your presentations. So to start with, I want you to think about what is the purpose of your presentation? A simple question, but are you really clear about what it is you're trying to achieve? If you were to summarize the key objectives for this presentation, what would they be? I think sometimes we lose our way. We forget what the objective really is. So, think about the type of presentation it is. Is it purely information sharing? Is it about engagement? Is it about an update, but then getting contributions from the rest of the team? So have a real think about the type of presentation that you're writing and what your key objectives are for that. From purpose, now I want you to think about your relationship with the audience. Now, audience I use in the broadest sense of the word, because you might be presenting to a small group internally, or it might be that you're presenting to a very large group that you've never met before. But think about that relationship, because of course, if you are presenting internally to people that you know well, then you can anticipate a number of things. So you can think about their agenda. What do they think about this particular topic? What kind of questions are they going to raise? What kind of issues might come up? And you can prepare for that and make sure that you have the answers to hand. However, if this is a totally new group, you've never met them before, you're presenting to people that you just are not that familiar with, then you may need to go and do some research. So whoever has set up this event for you to do this presentation, hopefully can give you some insights in terms of the group and the kinds of questions they might have or what they might be particularly interested in. It's worth taking that extra time to really get to know them in advance, just so that you can really make sure that you're delivering the type of presentation that's going to interest them. So from relationship, I want you to then think about the end. So start from the end. I know this is counterintuitive. We often want to start from the beginning and build up the presentation story. But I like to encourage people to think about the end. And to frame it, think about it as your last slide, your last message that you want to land. What would that look like if it was just 10 words on a slide, for example? And really kind of nail it. Get the idea of what it is, that key message is right at the end that you want to leave people with, and is the sticky, memorable idea. Because once you have that, it then becomes easier to build up your story. And that is the next stage. Now, of course, you could go straight to now writing this in your PowerPoint deck or your Google Slides deck. But I actually quite like to use a particular technique, which is I take some sticky notes and I think about what are the key ideas that I want to share in this presentation. Now I know what the end point is. How do I move to the end? And it's not necessarily that each of these sticky notes is going to be one slide. It can be, but it might sometimes be that you've got to get the ideas out first before you work out how they maybe group together into one slide, or maybe one idea is very complex and you need to break it down over several slides. So it is worth doing this as a planning activity. So I get my post-it notes, I write one idea per sticky note, and then I just lay it out either on the table or maybe on the wall next to me as well. And what I do then is that I think about, have I got all the key points? Have I got all the main ideas here? It also allows me to think about the order of the story. How am I going to tell the story? So then I spend time moving the sticky notes around so that I can make sure the story really flows. So that's quite an important stage. And that really helps me to work out what the story looks like, what are the key sections, and then what the key slides are to move me towards the final message and the end. So there we go. We've now got the story. So that's fantastic. We've got that kind of built up. The next point is really about how are you going to open and how are you going to close. So this is more about now getting into, once you've written the main body of the presentation, thinking about the impact you can have at the start of your presentations and at the close of your presentations, because these are two key moments when you really want to capture the attention of the audience, and they are the moments which are most memorable. Now, clearly, there are standard ways of doing this. You can open with a welcome and a bit of logistics and introductions, and then introduce the topic and get straight in. Equally, at the end, we can do a very simple summary of what we've covered in the presentation, thanking people and perhaps inviting questions. And these techniques work. So if they work for you, please do use them. However, here are just a few other ideas about how we can open and close our presentations with a little bit more impact, pizzazz. So one idea is to use a quotation from a famous person or from somebody who is relevant and had something relevant to say. And you can use this both at the beginning and the end to engage people and to really have a bit of a different way to have impact. So it does actually draw attention by using a technique like this. Similarly, you can use a shocking fact or statistic. Again, that can be very attention grabbing, both at the beginning and the end of the presentation. And then one final technique is to ask a question. Most commonly, people do this at the beginning. So they ask a question to the audience, which they don't expect them to answer, but more is a thought-provoking question. And it might be something like, what would you do if, or imagine if? So almost getting people to use their thinking process. So they're not just sitting there and listening, they're actually involved in the presentation from the first moments. But I say, why not use a question also at the end? This can be a great way to end a presentation and then encourage people into discussion and next steps if that's relevant and appropriate. And then the very final part of writing and planning your presentation is to keep it simple. I say this many, many times in Wednesday Words in different topics around communication skills and strategies, but this is really a key point particularly with presentations, you do want to keep it simple. You want to have people's attention for the limited time that you have. And you don't want to overwhelm them with too many words that you're saying, too many words on the slides, or too many actual ideas. So they just feel like overwhelmed by everything you're saying. It is much better to have fewer slides, less words on the slide, with more pictures and images, and actually to say less words as well, so that they can actually just remember sort of the 1, 2, or 3 key points that you're trying to say. As they say, a picture says 1,000 words, and I do think that is very true when it comes to presentations. If you have lots of information that you do need to share, it is much better to send this afterwards as an appendix with various slides for people to read, either actually in advance or after the presentation has finished. So there we go. We have covered today, and you have learned more about the success factors for writing and planning your presentations. So just as a summary, what is the purpose of your communication? What is the relationship like with the audience? Start with the end. Build your story. How are you going to open and close? And keep it simple. I do hope that's been useful for you to maybe think a little bit differently about how you're writing and planning your presentations. I appreciate sometimes it's quicker to just open up those PowerPoints or Google Slides and just get going. And of course, you need to judge about the type of presentation that you're trying to do. But if you are looking for that presentation that is going to have more impact and engagement with the people listening, and they are going to remember the points that you're making, then I really do encourage you to think about how you're going to implement this and maybe try out some of these techniques. So let's talk about activate and learn now. I would love you to choose from all the techniques that I shared today, at least 1 or 2 of these techniques. And I would like you to try them out next time in your next presentation. The important thing is to learn from them. So try them out in the presentation. And I would ask somebody you trust who's sitting in the audience for their feedback after the presentation. And ask them if they notice anything different in the way that you're doing the presentation. Ask them what worked well, and perhaps you would do differently. You should do differently next time. And I would also self-reflect as well after the presentation and ask yourself the same questions. When you try out something new, it's great to experiment, but it's really important to capture the learning as well. So what worked well for you, and what would you do differently next time? As you know, in Wednesday Words, I talk a lot about different communication skills and strategies, whether for presentations like today, for meetings, for general workplace communication. And this is for you if you are particularly somebody who's working in business and developing your career in business, or if you're a business owner and are wanting to improve your communication for sharing your message. I share these Wednesday Words videos with communication skills and strategies every single Wednesday, as the name suggests. But I want to make sure that as many people as possible have this and have access to this, because I want to have that benefit for everybody to have. So if you're not subscribed currently and not receiving them direct into your inbox every single Wednesday, then please do make sure you sign up via this link so that you do receive them every single Wednesday and you don't miss out on any of the key topics that I'm sharing. Thank you so much for joining me today for Wednesday Words, where we talked about the success factors for planning and writing presentations. I'm Victoria Reynoldson, Communication and Culture Coach, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Wednesday Words.